Ultimately, it would be great if every ride request we received was nearby and we could just auto-accept all of them. Unfortunately, that is not always the case, and there may be some requests that we want to decline or even cancel. So how do these declined or canceled requests affect us? Joe here with the Rideshare Guy, and today we're going to discuss acceptance and cancellation rates. So first, what's the difference between acceptance and cancellation rate? Acceptance rate is the amount of requests you accept divided by the amount of requests you have received. And this is actually Uber's definition of acceptance rate. Lyft's definition of acceptance rate is a little more nuanced, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. So for example, you start your day, you accept your first request, then your acceptance rate would be 100%. Say your next request, your second request of the day comes from 10 miles away and you decline that request, then your acceptance rate would be at 50%. And as far as cancellation rate, that is calculated by taking the amount of requests canceled by you, the driver, divided by the amount of requests that you have accepted. And a driver canceled ride is any ride that you accept and then cancel. If you decline a request by tapping the X with Lyft or tapping no thanks with Uber, that is not a canceled ride but a declined request. And also, if you let the 15 seconds pass and don't touch anything on the screen when a request comes, that is also a declined request. And when a passenger no-shows you on Lyft and you cancel that ride and accept the cancellation fee, your cancellation rate is not affected at all. But it is affected with Uber when that same thing happens. Although Uber will take these cancellations into account if your cancellation rate ever is flagged in the system. And passenger canceled rides have no effect on your cancellation rate whatsoever. Cancellation rate is only calculated using driver canceled rides. And an example of cancellation rate, say you accept 50 ride requests in a given week and you cancel 3 of them, your cancellation rate would be 6%. So first, how does acceptance rate affect you? With Uber, the only thing you really want to worry about is if you are declining or missing a bunch of requests in a row, you may be logged out of the app for 10 to 15 minutes. But when it comes to bonuses, Uber has moved away from acceptance rate requirements in most markets. With Lyft though, and their power driver bonus, there are a lot of drivers that need to maintain a 90% acceptance rate for the week in order to attain that bonus. Although we have heard of for some drivers, Lyft removing that acceptance rate requirement altogether. And Lyft calculates acceptance rate by taking the number of completed rides plus the rides marked as no-show and dividing those rides by your total ride requests. And again, this is a weekly calculation. This resets every single week. So one thing that sticks out in that calculation is rides marked as no-show. I used to think that any ride that you accepted affected your acceptance rate. So if you accepted a ride and the passenger canceled right away, then that affected your acceptance rate. That would improve your acceptance rate because you accepted that ride. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Passenger canceled rides do not affect your acceptance rate. The only time your acceptance rate is affected is if you've arrived at the passenger's location, you've waited the 5 minutes, and you've marked the passenger as no-show. That will improve your acceptance rate. And there are 3 ways to negatively affect your acceptance rate: if you decline a request, if you miss a request, or if you cancel a ride. And also, there are no decimal points with acceptance rate. So say your acceptance rate is 89.5%, that will round up to 90%. So here's an example of a calculation. Say for the week you had 45 completed rides plus 2 rider no-shows. That would be a total of 47 accepted requests for the week. Let's say you declined 5 ride requests because they were too far away. That would be a total of 52 total requests for the week. 47 divided by 52 total requests equals 90%. And Lyft does not give you that calculation for the week. They just give you a percentage. So if you want to know your true percentage, if you want to calculate your true percentage, you're going to want to keep track of the no-shows, and you're also going to want to keep track of your declined, your missed, and your canceled rides. And as far as a tip, at the beginning of the week, you'll want to be aware of the total amount of rides you need in order to qualify for your power driver bonus. So for example, I need 45 rides in order to hit the lowest tiered power driver bonus for me personally. So at the beginning of the week, I know that I can miss or cancel 5 requests and still maintain that 90% acceptance rate. 45 divided by 50 is 90%. Now moving on, what about cancellation rate? How does that affect you? In the past year, both Uber and Lyft have made it a lot easier to just decline requests. Previously, if you got an unwanted request, you would either have to wait the 15 seconds and completely ignore that request, or accept the request right away and then cancel it. But in the past year, both Uber and Lyft have added the functionality. With Uber, they've added that no thanks button, so you can just press no thanks right away and decline a request. With Lyft, they have that X up in the top left. You can just press that X, and that's the way to decline a request. And again, when you decline a request, that only affects your acceptance rate. It has no effect on your cancellation rate whatsoever. But there still may be times where, say, you accidentally accept a request, or maybe you accept the request and decide that you don't want the ride, or maybe you've accepted a Lyft request and then a better surge request comes on Uber and you want to take that one. Under these circumstances, it is totally understandable if you want to cancel some of these rides, but you want to keep those cancellations at a bare minimum in order to avoid potential deactivation. And there's really no specific cancellation rate that will trigger deactivation, but the warning signs will be there. If you're constantly getting texts, emails, or in-app messages letting you know that your cancellation rate is getting too high, you could be possibly facing potential deactivation. And deactivation for a high cancellation rate is usually not something that you can get reactivated for. Again, just try to utilize the decline request option for unwanted rides and limit your cancellations as best you can. So to summarize, the main thing to worry about with acceptance rate is the Lyft Power Driver bonus and temporary app logouts if you are declining too many requests in a row. And as far as cancellation rate, just try and decline those unwanted requests and keep your cancellations at a bare minimum. And if you haven't subscribed to the Rideshare Guide channel, please subscribe. We post new videos every single week. Thanks again for watching and drive safe. Thanks.